I'm James Walker, and this is Real Talk, Real People. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. About 2 months ago, I did a podcast on what I consider to be the Black community just seems to be falling apart. And I don't understand why. We are and have been a very strong community, but lately, over the last 20, 30 years, we just seem to be falling apart and have lost all sense of togetherness. I'm not the only one who thinks like this and thinks that something must be done. My guests today are three women. Collectively, they're known as the Elements of Abundance, and separately, each is bringing her own unique talents to help bring the Black community back together. Let's hear what they have to say.
Greetings. My name is Hafiza Toure. I am 1/3 of the Elements of Abundance. I am a healer by purpose. I come from a long line, 6 generations down, of healing women, and I am satisfying that purpose in my own experience. I primarily focus significantly on natural childbirth and the maternal mortality and morbidity rate here in this country and bringing awareness to it. In addition to that, we work together to engage the community, and that is what really kind of brought us and motivated us to do what it is that we're doing with the experiences that we're creating, the community and the village that we are creating here. So I am excited to be here and to continue this conversation.
Well, thank you so much. And Arden?
Wonderful, James. Thank you for having us. So I'm Arden Santana, the fire element and representation of our trio. I'm an educator by purpose. I love that language, Hafiza. So I just bring information, knowledge, and awareness to our community, and a spark of fire and fun and passion, as my name represents. Arden does mean fiery and passionate and ardent, a little difficult at times, I may be. I think Hafiza said it most, that we're here just to bring collective, cooperative communication to the communities that we serve and engage in, to restore the lost elements of safety and fun and protection that our communities used to know. So.
And Shayla.
Hello, I'm Shayla, AKA Earth, and I pretty much represent sort of the groundness. My background is in food and nutrition, and I pretty much started my journey healing myself through food. So I bring forth, I call myself the foodie companion. So I bring forth that food and delicacy, but in a more healthy and playful way. And I like bringing all of us together over food, because we know how food we eat. Food is pretty much that universal language, right? Where any event you go to, food is always present. But it's what we eat, right? But it's what we eat, right? And so us elements coming together, we bring forth our purpose and our passion and together. And so I bring forth that food and just that deliciousness. And so we are the elements, and we are bridging that connection and that building of community. We started off in our homes doing what is called breaking bread. And now we're ready to bring it out to the community. We're ready to connect with the community and bring forth this sort of like connection, whether it's over food, whether it's over conversation, but definitely bringing that love and that energy out there.
Okay, so we have these three elements coming together. What is it that you hope to bring to the community? What is the end goal?
Well, end goal.
Yeah, anyone who feels like answering that.
Well, I think, we all kind of alluded to it in reference to just really bringing back that sense of community. What we notice is that there is this somewhat lack of trust and we're fragmented. You know, we had an event and we talked about our fondest memories about growing up in the neighborhoods in which we grew up in, and it was the collectiveness of it. It was knowing the person who lived down the street. It was the, you know, the elders in the community keeping an eye out and knowing whose child was who, you know, on the block. So it was those certain things that, you know, we somewhat took for granted at that point. And as parents in this day and age, you know, we're raising children in our community. We've created a village where we've created a safe space for them to, you know, build friendships and to interact and to, you know, play. But we understand that we don't want to be in isolation, right? In order for them to have counterparts and contemporaries, people that they can marry and continue to build community with, this has to be extended beyond just us and our,
Right.
you know, smaller circle. So the motivation and the passion behind it is to bring those meaningful conversations, those meaningful interactions that truly build community. Not just that you live next door to me, but that I've connected with the humanness in you. You know, and we're doing activities that bring our culture back into it. You know, our food is in the culture is in our food, the culture is in our music, the culture is in, you know, everything that
The way
is
we dress,
us.
the way we walk, the way we talk,
Absolutely.
it's in all of that. So Arden, tell me, when did this kind of separation begin to happen within the Black community? Because I don't think there's any doubt that everyone knows right now the Black community is in shambles. I mean, we just don't see, we have these pockets of goodwill, such as yourself. And there are a lot of pockets of goodwill, but there is no togetherness. And I think that is a major problem. When do you think this started? You're muted. Arden, you're muted.
Thank you, sir. That's a great question. I think the separation started probably around the Great Depression and with the introduction of social welfare. And what that meant for the Black community was remove the man and the father in order to get this government money and let us step in to educate and raise your families. And then just societally, folks are moving around, and physically we're separated because, you know, we live in different places. Emotionally, we're separated because we're under rocks, and there's a stigma associated with, you know, mental health support and programs and therapy. Spiritually, we're separated because we aren't educated in the ways that our ancestors practice connectivity and connection, whether physically present or far apart. We have those abilities. So I just believe it began with a dependence on socialism, on social welfare systems, and a removal of education, history and civics within the education curriculum that will allow people to learn in an objective, factual, historical way about the different cultures that exist. And as we just said, this is a cultural condition that we're experiencing. So we need to understand the cultures of every person in the classroom when we're studying.
When it comes to, you know, the welfare and all of that it brings, I have long thought that it's been a problem in our community, because not only has it taken away the breadwinners, so to speak, but it has made people complacent. And that drive to better oneself seems to be missing in a lot of cases, not in all cases. There are plenty of kids who are people who were raised on welfare or assistance who broke out that pattern. So Shayla, what can we do to kind of bring this all back together?
I always say we got to work on the trust, right? So building that trust, we're pretty much, I think when we piggyback and talked about trust, whether we can trust, you know, our children can go over this household or this family, and we got to bridge that connection. How do we bridge that connection? Is, you know, being open, having these sort of like events where we come together, we have dialogue, have conversations, and be able to share some of our experiences and come up with solutions, how we can pretty much move forward. Because I do find that sometimes we sort of focus on the negativity when it comes to certain things, like what's going wrong, instead of let's figure out what solutions and what, because I think everyone can contribute to the conversation. Everyone can definitely pretty much offer something to this sort of collectiveness, because that's what we're talking about, collectiveness. How can we bring this collectiveness community together? And is everyone contributing, right? Contributing whatever conversation, whatever expertise and things like that. And I definitely, I'm big on like healing work, right? So like getting down to that sort of core, why do we keep doing the same things over and over again? So like bring awareness to mental health, right? And having a conversation regarding that and tapping into, that particular subject as far as our mental wellness, and finding ways to bring forth that healing purpose in our community. Because I do feel like that's a big part in our community too.
For the last almost 3 years, I've been doing podcasts, and one of the subjects that I repeatedly go back to is the need for mental health services in the Black community, because we deal with more than just the average, American citizen. And for some odd reason, we're still not at the point where I think women are more in tune to going and getting help and seeking advice on raising children and all the rest of that stuff. But for Black men, and quite frankly, Black men really need at this point in time mental health services, because so many Black men and good Black men are beaten down and do not feel they're worth much. And the fact that they can help create children and then not be needed to be there to raise those children is a major problem. And I talk to Black men all the time, and they've kind of a lot of them have gotten to the point where, yeah, man, so what? Someone else was such and such and such. And it drives me crazy when I hear this, because they don't seem to understand their presence. Whether they got $1 in their pocket or $1 million in their pocket, their presence in their children's lives are so important. So how do we bring men and Black women who are at that stage where, I can do without you, how do we bring them back together and say, listen, you are the king in our home, okay? I am the queen, and we can both work together to bring up our children. How do we get that pride back together? Because it's pretty disturbing that it is gone.
It is.
He is, and I'm glad you brought that up. Right.
We all have to answer that.
Oh God, I guess I hit the
And I know that's been a lot of our motivation around just the conversations that really pushed us to begin to open this space up for others to come, because what we've noticed, especially as women and mothers, is that we are motivated to heal and grow and do the work necessary to be our best selves and then to be better parents in that sense. But that, again, that same vein isn't necessarily spoken of on the masculine side. And what we wanted to do is, instead of fragment it, where, we're always doing these women's wellness and women's circles and women, we need to work collectively. We need that balance. We need the men to know we need you, and we're not in this, space of we can do it by ourselves. We don't want to. We want to do this collectively.
Thank you for saying that, because that should be the truth. You shouldn't want to do it alone. And yet so many Black women are just, working, raising kids, it's, healthcare, all the rest of that stuff. How do I raise this young man to be a young man? Well, no matter how well you do it, without that male influence, they're just, it's pretty, it's, as someone who comes from that, I can tell you, it takes a while to find your footing and just find your self-worth. So give me an idea. You say this safe space, this space. Talk to me a little bit about this space and how you hope, or what you hope comes out of it, this space. What is this space going to do? And Arden, I'll ask you. Say what?
There are spaces. So I think when speak to Zola, I want to speak to raising highly capable kids, and Shayla, breaking bread. explain breaking bread and, the focus on James, just restore, just people eating together again. Folks are not sitting around the dinner table, like even regardless of who's in your household, male or
Right.
not, whoever is in that household, sit down, even if it's just on Sundays, and have a conversation with your children. Find out what's going on with them in school. What were they experiencing at camp? What happened during their day? Just a simple having a meal together. So I think we should go into those. Just to share.
Yeah.
Those are the spaces that we create.
So
There-
Zola, oh, sorry.
When I was growing up, and of course it's a different era, but one of the big things for me was not doing anything to embarrass my mother. That was the big thing. I did not want, it wasn't that I didn't want to be cool and, I didn't want to say, steal that popsicle I saw sitting there, unattended, but I knew that I would embarrass my mother. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. It doesn't seem to be shame. I take public transportation and I listen to people talk to their children, they, quite frankly, the language that they use is so unacceptable to me, cursing at your child, calling your child names. The child's 3, 4 years old. And I could just see how you are beating down this child and already taking away his or her self-esteem.
Yeah.
How do you
That's trauma.
That's
trauma.
trauma.
And
It
that's
is
what I was
deep
going to
trauma.
speak to. Absolutely. That as a community, as a people, and everybody on the planet to some level is experiencing trauma. As people of color in this country, we have generations after generation of trauma that is on top and compounded on top. So there is a lot of healing work that has to take place there because that is a self-worth, self-esteem issue. I hear it as well. I've been witness to that, hearing just out my window,
I know.
someone calling for their child, but calling their child out their name and in a way that it just seems so natural and normal for them. It wasn't even from a place of anger. It was like,
Right.
just like, come here.
Come here.
So these are the ways in which we're interacting, but it's coming from a place of trauma. And we don't know, like the family of origin, how were they spoken to as a child? What were they, what were the messages they were given? Who raised them? So it's the foundational need for the beginning to heal from this trauma. And we're bombarded with trauma. It's not like we're talking about post-traumatic,
No,
because on a day-to-day basis, we are still experiencing trauma.
we're ducking bullets.
Absolutely. So we've created, and we're all Zola ambassadors, and Zola is a vehicle that we've been utilizing to begin that conversation. We have safe spaces, again, for men, all men's group. There's no women involved, so that you can go a little deeper, that you can open up and have a certain level of vulnerability that you may not have with us in the space. We have all women's circle so that we can talk about the things that, are specific to our experiences, because we all have these shared experiences raising children and growing up in this society. So it's really an opportunity to begin the dialogue, because what we know is we're not in isolation. There are so many things that you can relate to, that just like we talked about being on the bus and hearing what we're hearing, this social media, we didn't have to deal with social media growing up. There's all kind of different things that we can relate to, that we can support each other. And we found that support within our collective. And that's what we would like to bring to the broader community, is to have that safe space to continue those dialogues, to get the support, because sometimes something's not right, but you may not have the tools or the vehicle to push you in a different direction. And we feel like Zola and the elements and these experiences in this community we're building will give the resources and the support to be able to do that.
I'm wondering, because we talked about, reestablishing pride and so forth in the Black community. I'm wondering how much the focus during, say, Black History Month is still on Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and so forth. And, let's be frank, Martin was, no doubt, he is the king. I mean, no doubt, Malcolm, no doubt what these men brought to our people. But that was in the 60s, 1960s. We're in the year 2022, and we have had other Black heroes emerge. So I don't understand why we continue every time we talk about Black and overcoming. We're still singing "We Shall Overcome." Give me a break. I'm not going anywhere where we're singing "We Shall Overcome." I overcame a long time ago. You know,
Right.
so I'm wondering how much of that just continues through our own, what we're doing to keep our people down by continuing to go back to that, oh, it's the white man's fault, this and that, when we're not taking a look at what we do and our nearly $2 trillion a year in financial, impact that we have on this country. We spend nearly $2 trillion a year. That is a major, major impact. And yet we don't look at those things. We're still following King, and we
James,
should love it.
this is where I have to jump in and get on this pronoun, okay? Because we right here is not contributing to that.
Right.
The system that's in place, the structural system, the geopolitical structure that's in place is continuing to perpetuate that. But within our collective and through Sage Academy, we're changing the narrative. We're not even changing the narrative. We're telling a different narrative. So does Martin Luther King end up, not just in February, we're teaching about us through Sage Academy. So I didn't mention that. I'm the founder of a school. So a part of what we need, everything needs to be our own. Our doctors, our mental health practitioners, our schools. We need to reclaim all of what was ours when we were desegregated, when Black Wall Street existed, when we were able to be independent and self-sufficient. So Martin Luther King is taught. He's not necessarily taught in January when he's celebrated. He's not taught necessarily in February in Black History Month. And when he is taught, we're focusing on his economic philosophy,
Right.
this untold story about the marches and why he was marching that mattered for everyone, even if you were white. If you weren't making as much as the upper 1%, then you were a part of Malcolm's movement. And that's who his movements were for. So, I have a series called The Untold Narratives, and those are the heroes sung and unsung that we don't hear about, during Black History Month. We this year, the children 6 to 10 years old learned about Claudette Colvin. Claudette Colvin didn't give up her seat at 15 years old before Rosa Parks.
Yes.
All right, so
some people don't know that there was somebody else before Rosa Parks.
Exactly. So these are the untold narratives that we're telling, within our collective, and to those families that partner with us to educate their children in non-traditional ways.
And you guys have mentioned two separate things to me, and I'm sorry, I'd have to go back and listen to the tape. But one was Sage Academy, and then there was a Zola, or
yes, the Zola experience. Yes.
Right. So these are what, separate programs you have, or what are they exactly? Because I'm a little confused. What are they exactly?
So Sage Academy, Science, Arts, History, Government, and Economics is the non-public school that my family founded that serves 6 years old and up. We're located in New Haven physically for 6 to 11-year-olds, offering a full academic program that includes what I call foundational subjects. The system calls them Common Core. But they're the foundational subjects. So we focus on literacy, particularly civic literacy, and of course, reading, writing, and arithmetic, because you can't do anything else without those basic understandings. And then virtually, we're available for 12 years old and up. And that can be live or self-paced on-demand classes. As a part of our offerings, I'm partnering with an organization who has presented a curriculum designed to offer parents. So this is the answer to your question about how do we create these self spaces? How do we refortify our families? How do we bring the men back in? Raising Highly Capable Kids is a parenting program that I will be implementing in January. It's open. It'll come through public schools and churches. As well as through Sage Academy, making an requirement that parents, a strong expectation that our parents attend this, because it's one of the ways that we can heal, but it is to give the parents the tool to make their children loving, capable, and caring. And the research, the feedback, the data is showing how it's healing homes. It's causing the parents are growing and being more mindful about how they're interacting in front of their children. Okay, this is the type of workshop oriented training that will, get the parent to stop and think about the fact that you're not going to say, hey, little MF, come inside, or get your A over here, and just providing the assets that the children need to be successful. And it's shaping the whole family. So that's what Sage Academy is. And I'll let Hafiza talk about Zola.
Okay, and Hafiza, the Zola, is it?
Yes, the Zola experience, and Zola means to love. It is a Swahili word that means to love, and it's a 7-session. It's a 7-session wellness experience that allows humanity. It really isn't specific to any community. It can be. We do split out the sessions so that they're male and female sessions to allow for the conversations and the dialogue. But everyone can utilize this as a vehicle to begin the dialogue around mental health and healing from grief, loss, and trauma. So it's a 7-session protocol. We've implemented it in various communities that we're working in. It can be gone through multiple times, but it really lends voice to our experience, and it really gives us tools to be able to work through them. And how do we manage stress, and how do we, tap into what is at the core of what our experience has been, so that we can heal that and move forward. It is something that is international. We have ambassadors all throughout. We were building up ambassadors throughout the United States, but we also have ambassadors in Thailand and South Africa and the Philippines that are using this system, or the 7-session protocol, to be able to begin the dialogue in their communities, to begin this healing process that is ongoing.
Okay, and Shayla, all of this is under one umbrella, am I correct?
So we are the Elements of Abundance, pretty much. But outside of Elements of Abundance, we have our own entities that we've established, and this is how we brought Elements of Abundance together. So we bring forth the Zola, we bring forth the Sage, and then I bring forth the food, and then we curated this sort of space where Elements of Abundance, when we create these sort of events, you get experience of all of that, right? So you pretty much get experience of all of the wind and the fire and the earth, and so it's a harmonious, loving, joyful experience. Absolutely, it's a great time.
It's a lifestyle, James. It's a lifestyle.
It is.
How do we take our gifts and our talents, right? They're not for us. Our gifts are not for us. They're to give. That's why it's called a gift. So we live our lifestyles. We're not, this is not something we do off air, or on air. It's when we get off the phone, we're going into what are our events for the day? Are we children? Or, is it just, is this an adult situation? What are we eating tonight? What, did we check on, mama so-and-so? It's just, this is just how we be.
We do.
Well, ladies, we're really out of time here. So I need one of you to wrap it all up and what you hope for the future, immediate, and 10 years from now. So who's going to do that for us?
Wendy rocking it. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Well, the motivation is around community engagement. We would definitely want to connect. We are on social media, Facebook. You can find us, Instagram, the Elements of Abundance. If you go to our website, theelements.now.site, it will connect you to all of our social media. It will let you know what we have upcoming, and it would allow you to get in contact with us as a collective. We want to engage the community. We want people to know that this is an open space, that you are welcome. And it doesn't matter, you might not resonate with everything that we're doing, but come be in the space and get to know us. It really is about that human connection, because we believe that that's where the change begins, when we stop seeing ourselves as being separate and understanding that we are here to live communally, to work collectively, and we are all resources and have something to bring into the collective. So we want to build, we want our men to feel comfortable coming into the space. I know you see us all, this feminine energy, but we absolutely invite the men into the space because we want that balance. We want that connection and that interaction. And this is how true community is built. So It's an open space, it's a safe space. Get connected with us, tap into the resources of Sage Academy, especially those parents that are out there. All of our children participate and are a part of Sage in some way, shape, or form. And as adults, we utilize the civic knowledge as well. So we want you to connect with us. We want you to tap in on social media. We want you to meet us in person, because energy speaks volume, and the sincerity and the love that we're coming from when you're in the space with us. So that
And the space is wherever we are.
We are.
So just be there. Just be there.
Well,
We
I
tell
have
you
to
to come.
I have to say that it really sounds good. And what you're doing, I think, is a great service to the community. And I hope through efforts like this and efforts like what you're doing and so forth, we can bring the Black community back together. You've been listening to Real Talk, Real People. If you would like to be on the show, if you have an idea for the show, give us a call at 203-605-1859 or drop us an email at realtalkrealpeoplect@gmail.com. You folks have a good week, and we'll talk again next week.